Hello, kids. It was like I was here just a few moments ago. Amazing. Now, this is, I know we haven't got any viewers, but I know the views will go up once you all start loving me. It's fine. I understand. This is gold anyway. I know this. But anyway, look, to be honest with you, what we're talking about here today, the second subject for today, because I'm backtracking a little bit because I have been incredibly busy, which is good news for me. Anyway, so this is today's thing. Second one is about, do you need to have a gym membership or can you train outside? Or maybe, you could do both. This is the thing we want to think about. Now, I spent a lot of years working in big gyms all around the world. And I must admit, I had some great fun and I learned a lot of things. Mainly, one of them was how difficult working in a big gym really is. And how hard working with 50, 60 personal trainers in the same gym can be. And also very beneficial in many respects. I made friends that I had for a long, long time and met some clients who I've had for a long, 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 long time as well. But, fundamentally, I think as you evolve and your career starts to go outward and you start to look past the basics that you learn while you're training or learning your craft or your trade, because that's what this is, you start to realize, okay, there might be more to this. I may not need to be stuck or suckling from the teeth of a major gym to be able to find my fitness. The same way you might feel that you don't need to go to church or something like that. You may not need to go to the gym because there are alternatives. Now, increase in outdoors training, and especially here in Australia, where we're very fortunate. I don't know if you can see at the back. No, you can't. But that's the Harbour Bridge, and that green, that kind of musty green you can see here, that is where I train people outdoors. So most of my training, 99% of my training these days, occurs outdoors in the wet and the sun and all the elements. We're all there all year round. And we do take shelter sometimes, but fundamentally we are there all year. Now, sometimes I go to people's houses, sometimes I work in hospitals, and sometimes, I'll do rehab with people in their homes where they can't get out. So there's a specialized need for equipment and stuff like that where you can't really do it outside. But by and large, the biggest amount of training is done outdoors. Now, in a gym, the benefits are you have showers, you have facilities, you can put your stuff in the locker, you have a lot of machines, you have a lot of variety in there, you have classes that you can do. So you can kind of cherry pick the things that you want from an environment that is structured towards activity. Now, the difference in this is activity versus productivity. Whereas you have a lot of weights, if you want to really build muscle, you have to use a lot of heavy weights. And a gym is probably going to be the only place where you're going to do that. Now, outdoors gyms like in LA and some other parts of Australia, they do have a lot of weights available. And it doesn't matter what they look like, as long as it's heavy enough for you to reach your goals of weight gain. So in that respect, if your goal is to gain weight, you'd have to go to an environment where weights are freely available and safe. It's important as well, because if you go to an environment where you're just lifting random weights, there's no guarantee that your center of gravity won't be off and you could injure yourself. And of course, if there's nobody there on hand to help you, because some of the injuries that we saw in the gym, obviously involving heavy weights that people lifted or moved incorrectly or made one slight movement or sometimes even sneezed. Some of the biggest trainers I know have had really serious injuries and deep vein thrombosis and broken bones and displaced parts of their body they shouldn't have done just by simply losing their focus and attention. So in a gym environment, it's much better if you've got very strict goals to go and do those things and make sure you're uninterrupted and on the back foot know that there's somebody there who can call an ambulance if you fall or you break your arm or dislocate your shoulder, as some people have done in the past or whatever it is. Also for things like boxing and martial arts and other kind of capoeira, dancey kind of Zumba. I never knew what to call that. But you could find those mainly in gyms. You don't tend to see people doing dance classes outside. You do get group fitness. I suppose group fitness is very common outside. And it doesn't take much because the way that those classes are structured can be much more elaborate and maybe a little bit more natural than you would find in a gym environment. So for example, we have lots of little hills over here that we can use to help people to just burst into spontaneous runs, which they couldn't necessarily do in a gym. But for your average office worker, that's something that's really important, that they have the ability to do that. So you can't really run up a wet grassy hill in a gym. So they're not only working their cardiovascular fitness, but they also have to work their core. They have to make sure they're not going to slip over. They're much more alert, which is something really in a gym environment. That's one of the things you have to be aware of, is that it can be so controlled and safe and health and safety orientated that you're really just kind of nestling and settling into something that's not fundamentally representative of how the human body works, which is just totally random to begin with. So one of those things is the safe environment that a gym will give you, the variety of things that you can do in a gym, and, you know, to have specific needs that only a gym can provide, as well as the facilities of change to get to work. And if you come in and you don't want to go to work smelling like some dirty arsehole, which happens a lot, and basically these things, you have structured payments, you don't have to worry about it, you can just lean on that system. But once you start to evolve out of that, and I think it's a process of evolution when you start training either with others outside, because then the next training step is to be, do I really want to train with others? Am I happy to start managing my own training, or intermittently seeing a trainer? Those are things, because especially with group prices these days, everybody is a trainer and everybody is running a group class. I know some as little as $5. Some of them are actually free, which isn't a bad thing. And then you donate at the end of the class. Basically, it gives you a chance to give them, like some of these walking tours, you know, you go on the walking tour, it's free. And at the end, you know, there's no expectation to pay, but obviously they want something. Otherwise they couldn't continue, but the obligation to pay isn't there. So outside group sessions, you can find somebody who's going to be able to help you and to give you some assistance. But the first and most important thing when you're considering about outside sessions, how many people are in the group? If it's a matter of 4 or 5, well, you've got to ask yourself. I always say it's like spinning sticks on plates. You know, if I've got 5 sticks and 5 plates, I can just about manage all of those. You know, and if one of those is needy, I've got to give that a little bit more of a shake and a little bit more momentum than some of the other plates. Whoops. But at the same time, I have to make sure that everybody gets a fair share and I'm able to manage them safely, because obviously I have an obligation to make sure they're safe while they're training and that they're using the right form and they're not being neglected, for example. So one of the things that you should always think about is, what is the number in my class? What is then my competence? Because if my competence with fitness is relatively low, and I don't want to have a gym membership because I find it just hems me in, then basically you've got to start asking yourself what it is I'm going to get out of this, because we come back to then activity versus productivity. Now, activity, lots of calories burnt, but no real way of learning something that will give you legs, to be able to learn something about how your body moves and how your body works and how you should feed it and how you should nourish it. So there's an entire process. One of the things, okay, now this is an analogy I love to use with people. When the farmer is planting his crop each year, he has his fields, and in those fields, the crop is planted, and over the course of the germination and growing and everything that comes through, his harvest is taking all the nutrients out of the bottom of the field and becoming what eventually is the crop. Now, if the soil has the nutrients in it, basically what happens is the crop will be bountiful. It will be nice and juicy and thick. And, you know, when they pick it, it won't be all limp and half dead. Now, if you think about the desert used to be soil, but is now devoid of any nutrients. So what happens is, with the soil, once they've had a crop come through, the farmer, to prevent it becoming like the desert, has to now reintroduce these nutrients back into the place where he's taken them from via his crop. Now, there's a lot of analogies you can use with the human body here, but basically what that means is the same when we're training. If you are not feeding yourself well, if you're not getting the right nutrition and hydration, none of this will make any difference, and your activity will be greater than your productivity, because these things aren't running in parallel. These are things that have to be alongside each other in infinity. Now, if one of them's going great guns, but the other one is going this line, you know, sooner or later there'll be an interception. And the definition of parallel lines, nutrition, hydration, and exercise, is they will run side by side to infinity. And you can manage them within certain bounds without allowing them to become something that prevents you from deriving the benefits of what it is you've set out to achieve. So regardless of whether you're in the gym or if you're outdoors in a group or training with a one-on-one outside, the first two things, nutrition, hydration, and then matching that up to your exercise levels. This is common for everything, whether you work inside or outside, and making sure you are managing that. Because if you keep planting the crops in the field without putting blood and poo and bone back into the soil so the plants can absorb that and produce their fruit and veg, then it will eventually just diminish and diminish and diminish. So it doesn't matter. The priority has to be, what have I done to prepare myself for either of these activities? It's an ongoing process, and one that you should be project managing entirely on your own and acutely taking note of until it becomes first nature. So I think there's the 4 stages of awareness: the unconsciously incompetent, consciously competent, unconsciously competent, consciously competent, and unconsciously competent, which is when it says you no longer have to think about these things. Now, we only get to that point of being able to be aware of those things, but then being able to serve them as second nature. I like to say first nature, because they become who you are. Your habits are integrated with who you are. You no longer have to think about it. Fundamentally, then, what that means is you're able to derive the benefits from whatever it is you've chosen to do. So it's not only thinking about finding maybe a balance between swimming one day, going and do heavy weights the next day, having a cardio session outdoors, a training session the next day, focusing on just a walk or something, active rest. It's a balance of everything that comes to meet what your expectations are, what your time limits are, what your budget is, how you fed your body, how everything fits together. If you don't have that fit, the balance and the mix just won't work. And when you're disappointed and you can't seem to get a foothold, that's when things start to take a turn for the worst, okay? So you'll end up not wanting to do or be any better because you're not satisfied with the results that you have. So thinking practically about what happens is important in what your level of fitness and what your expectations are thereof. And like in the last session we just did, measuring yourself and making sure that you have realistic goals based on those things. It's like a whole big shebang. There's nothing small about this. Asking a trainer to, I'll be honest with you, I see trainers who go to town and they provide you with this much paperwork that you're meant to look at. No, I see people get all enthused about it. They get home and they go through this big report and they go, oh, fuck this, you know, this is too much like hard work. But they're not given the opportunity to see, well, if you change simple things here, a little bit, just a little here and a little there, and then make sure you keep an eye on that, come back to it, check that again, go back to it, and just flip between these things, you find the results are much more rewarding and long lasting. Of course, if you're completely lost, if you think that you can have chocolate all day or eat bacon all day or drink booze and smoke fags all day, and that's what you think, well, of course, help is going to serve you by going back to the basics and saying, well, actually, you can't do that. This is how you have to do it. And then it's up to you to pay attention for it. If you're paying for it and not paying attention to it, it doesn't matter if you're training indoors or outdoors. Now, one of the benefits also of outdoor training is you get the fresh air. Most people are in an office all day long and they get stuck behind a desk in a seated position. And that can be also something that contributes to their eventual demise. So getting out and being active during the day, even if it's those 30 minutes, providing, part of our philosophy is always providing you've taken into account your nutritional needs prior to and post each workout on a 24-hour rotating basis that you never ever really seem to be able to move away from. It's never going to end. Your body's always going to need something and it has to follow that cycle consistently. Then you can choose what it is you want to do. But if it's a question of saving money, sure. TRX suspension training, very big part of how we train. Basic training, very military orientated training. It's very popular. Lots of people like how it's very simple. Excuse me. They like how they can switch off, not have to think, let somebody else do the driving for them. and be pushed to a point where, you know, they can feel something happening in their body. And a lot of the time it's about changing your parameters and encouraging people to do what they're comfortable with. Now, I always say to people, I'm not going to tell you to do more than you're capable of. That's up to you. You're here, you're on the stage, the lights are on, the curtains are up, you're in costume, makeup is on, the audience is in, and everything is ready to go. Now, if you come and do a session, you give half of what you had in the tank, you know, I say, shame on you. You should have fucking gone harder. If you walk away from a session and you say, I didn't feel it, you should have gone harder. Now, if you need someone to yell at you, you know, join the Marines or do something like that. But if you can't motivate yourself to do it, you can't give another 10%. Well, it doesn't matter if you're training indoors or outdoors. What matters is that you give yourself 30 minutes and you say, I'm going to smash those 30 minutes. I'm going to give it everything I have. And then you start to enthuse because of that. You start giving more of yourself. You start to reciprocate within yourself about what it is you're willing to do to make sure that you win and that you feel good. And then it becomes contagious. It almost becomes addictive. But there's a point where we want to be healthy, you know, fit and healthy, not just fit because you can be fit and unhealthy because it becomes too much. So managing those expectations, being able to understand what it is that fits in with your life. So if you're an office worker, you want to have something that complements that, make sure it's not doing any detriment. And also by making sure that the fundamentals, posture, core breathing, understanding how your digestive system works, hydration, nutrition, all the basics are catered for every single day. And like a Cinderella effect, it comes around and it finishes at 12 o'clock again. It doesn't matter what I did yesterday. The counter's set to 0 every 24 hours at 12 o'clock, it comes back round again. So now I have to consider what I've done. Now, if I leave my body out in the wilds on their own and say, well, you know, on Wednesday I ate well and did a little bit of exercise. Nostalgia isn't what it used to be. That will not count at all. That counted on the day you were doing it while you were doing it. Today is a new day. What have you done? Where did you do it? How does it add up? What is it going to do for you? Because if you don't think about it like that, like anything, what's the fucking point? Just don't do it. It's not going to be disappointing. You're going to feel better with yourself that you've made a solid decision to do nothing. And I admire that in people. You don't want to do it? Fine. You want to do it? Then fucking do it. That's simple, isn't it? I don't want to talk too much like a trainer, but I guess that's the heart of how this works, inside or outside. Now, I prefer, personally, all of my training is outdoors these days. I know how to get to a point of satisfaction, and I know what doesn't challenge me, doesn't change me. Now, I can understand it's a curve. I'm going to change at certain points, but there's certain points where there'll be long periods where there may not be consistent change, only gradual change because of the ground that I've covered. So you find that, okay, you know, I have to up this. I have to change those combinations. I have to consider now what my body needs and then how I'm going to give it to my body, in what installments, in what order, and specifically for me, not what the next guy's doing, what I'm doing. And that's why it's important to pick right. When you're picking a trainer, we're going to discuss this on another Hangout, but you have to be able to find out what it is that's specific to you. And once you're specific and you have the answers and you're satisfied in a logical way that that's what's right for you, you'll feel better about doing it. And you'll feel better about investing in yourself, time, money, energy, because everything you do, you could be doing something else. So this is my opportunity cost. What is the opportunity that I'm giving up to pursue this? How much is that worth to me? And that is only down to you. And that's why we don't really use forms and stuff like that, because I found when you present a form to someone, it's just like a generic way of saying, yeah, here we go. This is going to be you. You're going to comply with this. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done. It's just a cookie cutter kind of generic approach that stamps the same thing on everybody. No, we sit down with a blank piece of paper and we start from the beginning. What do you want? How are you going to get there? What are you prepared to give up? What's your budget? What's your time frame? Now, instead of trying to wean out of you little things that I can use to get you on the yes train and go, yes, I want to do this. And you really want to do that. Yes, no. Tell us. Come to us when you're ready and we will help you. But until you're ready, don't pick indoors or outdoors. Just wait for your time. And when that's right, then you can start to make decisions. And you might have to try both. You might have to find that out for yourself. But until then, the first thing is be ready. And when you're ready, the show can begin. Now, I think that's a pretty good and logical way of doing it, making sure you're in good health and keeping it there. Now, let's have a look how many viewers we have here. And as usual, there's 0. I'm really chuffed with that, actually, because I think most people are just missing out. I have to say that. It's fine. We don't care. Well, we do, but I'm not going to cry over it. Maybe after, when I turn the camera off. But I've got a few more of these to do this morning, so I'm going to keep on going. So you'll see me in a few more minutes if you're going through them all, which I know you slavishly will do. Yeah, here we go. And just any questions that you've got, I forgot to mention before, you can ask me and I'll come back to them. But again, if you're watching this and you don't know how this works, you can email me, you can send me a message and I will get back to you. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. This is wonderful. I can contact you and then we can go through whatever it is that you are doing with your life and how it works. I'm also happy to help. If you're in Sydney, you can give me a call and we can meet up. But the online availability is very much open to you, and it's a great way of finding out from a seasoned pro how to get yourself into the shape you've always dreamt of, and to maybe just find a way of making your way through the darkness to find the light. Okay, I'll see you on the next Hangout. Let's just check here. Can we open up for questions? I'll do it anyway. It doesn't seem to be. There you go. Any questions? Any viewers? Outdoor fitness? No. Never mind. Okay, kids. So next up, I'll see you in a few minutes. Just rattling through these. Okay. Bye.